Okay, so guys, welcome back. Today we continue from where we left last time. Remember, the challenge is a 7-day. I teach my cousin chess, and we see if my cousin will be able to defeat me in chess or to play a game, a good game within 7 days. So in the previous class, we learned about the pieces, how the various pieces move. So we learned how the various pieces move, their values, and the importance of the various pieces. So today we continue from where we left in the previous class. Today we discuss about castling. Yes, we're going to discuss about castling, about en passant, and then pawn promotion and what happened. So for now we're going to start with castling. So I'll start with castling. So in chess castling we have two types of castling, or there are two uh, to start with, let me define castling. So castling is a special move in chess where two pieces can move at the same time. So you don't see this anywhere. And when I started teaching you chess, I told you once white makes their move, they have to wait for black to move. But now, in this case, we are discussing about castling. Castling is a special move where two pieces move at the same time. So the castling, it happens when you move the king and rook. So the king jumps one square. So if the king is here on e1, the king will jump the f square and come to g1. Okay. So and
Okay.
we have king on e1. Again, it can decide to jump and come on this other side to c1. So as you know, the king can't jump. It usually moves one square at a time. So in this case, in castling, the king can jump and it only jumps one square. So we have long castling and short castling. So in this case, I've said the king will jump one square. So like that. So that is short castling.
Short.
Yes. I want you to see this distance. You see we have two squares. And this other side we have three squares. So this will be long castling and this will be short castling. Okay.
Okay.
So short castling, king comes to g1, and then rooks come to the immediate square after g1. That is f1. Understood?
Okay. Okay.
So long castling, the king comes to c1. So how to write this? Short castling, you just write 0 0, and then long castling it's 0 0 0. Understood that?
Yeah.
So I should tell you the importance of castling. Number one, it brings your king to safety. You know, the king right now, the king is the center, almost at the center of the board, or let's just say it's at the center of the board. It's very easy for other pieces to attack it. So when you perform castling, when you do castling, you see the king comes at the corner. So and you have, let's say you have the pawns here, so it becomes easier, and the attack won't come easy unless you're not careful with your pieces. Okay. So number one importance of castling is that you bring your king to safety. Number two, you bring your rook into the game or to the game. So I want you to see in this position, like you see the rooks are at the corners, and we have sometimes we have the minor pieces here, the pawns here. We have the pawns here. So this rook is not doing much when it's here. So but when you castle, this rook comes at the center and you're able to make it active, and it can attack your opponent and help you. Understood?
Yeah.
So let's discuss about rules of castling. You just can't castle from nowhere. Let's discuss some rules that you have to follow for you to castle. So rule number one, the king has not moved before. So if when you started the game or in the middle of the game you decided to move this king to any square, so it's not in its initial starting position. So let's say you moved this king here and then you moved it back, you can no longer perform castling. So for you to do castling, the king should not have moved at any point. Okay?
Okay.
Again, the rook should not have moved. So if you've moved this rook, let's say it was here and okay, if you've moved this rook at any point in the game, you can't castle again. So the rook and both the rook and the king should not have moved. So I hope you get that. And also, before you castle, we shouldn't have any pieces in between the king and the rook. We should not have pieces in between. So these two squares should be empty. Also on this other side, these three squares should be empty. So you can't perform castling if we have pieces in between the king and the rook. And another rule for you to consider before castling, the king must not be in check. So you can't do castling when you are in check. You can't do castling when you're in check. Again, before you castle, the king must not pass through a check. When you're castling, the king must not pass through a check. So let's say maybe we have a black bishop here. Your opponent has a black bishop here. So this bishop is controlling this square. This diagonal. This bishop is controlling this diagonal, which means you can't castle because your king will undergo a check here on f1. So you can't castle. And also before you castle, another rule, the king does not land in check. So when you castle, you ensure where your king is coming or where your king is going to. Let's say you did short castling and your king came to g1. So ensure there is no other piece, your opponent's piece, that is attacking the g1 square. So the same applies when you're doing long castling. Understood?
Yeah.
I think it's okay. So yeah, I think it's best I explain this castling when you have all the pieces in the board or on the board. So we're going to start like a normal game, and then we will castle. After that, I think you should have understood that very well.
Yeah.
So I'll start with e4 and then e5. So and then let's say I play knight f3. I'm attacking this piece here. So black decides to defend it and they play knight c6. And then you develop your bishop. Just play c4. And then now you see we have this in between the king and the rook. There are no pieces here. Are you seeing that? So it's black's turn to play. Black plays here because black also should develop their pieces. So now you can castle because there are no pieces in between the king and the rook. So you can castle, you can do short castling if you want. Yes. So you can now castle. But if in this position here, the bishop is still in, so which means you cannot castle, you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said you only castle if there are no pieces in between the king and the rook. Okay.
Okay.
So in this position, let us bring our other knight out. We develop these other pieces as well. So this knight comes. Also, we play knight f6. White goes for d3. Black goes for d6. White plays bishop g5. Opponent plays bishop d7. and white goes for queen d2, black goes for queen e7. So here black can castle. Are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, black can decide to go for short castling or long castling, because now it's possible, and white as well can go for long castling or short castling. We don't have pieces in between the king and the rook, so we can decide to go for long castling. Have you seen that? Or we can decide to go for short castling.
Okay.
So let's say we go for long castling. Black can decide to go for short castling or even go for long castling, whichever way. So have you understood about castling and how to do it?
Okay. Okay. So just something. I don't know. I don't know. When you go for long castling, I thought you'll move like two more, like another extra. But I just see that you're
Mm-hmm.
on C1.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you'll be on B1 when you go for a long castle.
No, no. When you're doing castling, as I said, the king only jumps one square. So if the king is on E, it will jump the D square and go to C1. If the king is on E again, it will jump the F1 square and go to G1 square. You only jump one square.
Oh,
Yes, just one square. And that is why we are saying we have long castling and short castling.
okay.
Yeah. Any other question?
No, 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 no.
After discussing about castling, I'd like to discuss about the en passant. En passant is a special move. It is a very special move that pawn captures, and it happens immediately an opponent moves their pawn 2 squares forward from its starting position. So let's take an example of this position here. So en passant happens when the opponent pawn is trying to escape being captured fairly. So let's say in the current position on the board, so it is black to play. So black decides to perform a charge move, and they come to h5. So white is allowed to do this. White is allowed to capture like that. I hope
Mm-hmm.
you are with me. So we know very well this pawn, we know pawns move one square at a time and forward, right? So
Yeah.
this pawn is supposed to be here, but then they performed a charge move,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to escape from being captured, right? So in chess, as long as the pawn moved and it's next to you, you're allowed to capture it. You can just capture like that, because that pawn, it was supposed to come to h6, but then it went straight to h5. And you might want to ask, at what point can you perform this en passant? En passant, you only perform it when your opponent has played. They have played their pawn next to your pawn, and they are trying to escape from being captured. And now the en passant is a special move, and it's a tricky one. So you're allowed to capture because they're trying to escape. So if they do this, just capture here. So it also happens with other pawns. If we had a pawn here and then they move here, again you can just capture like this. You can just capture here. Okay?
Okay. So as long as like you're on that position, and maybe the person on playing on black
Mm-hmm.
wants to like escape your pawn, so you're allowed to capture their pawn.
Yes, yes, yes. You just capture their pawn.
Okay, okay. So the only way that you can avoid being captured is not moving your pawn.
Um, yes, because if in this position you move your pawn here, again I can just capture.
Okay.
Yes, I can still capture if you move your pawn there. You have any other
What
question?
if
Mm-hmm.
what if like you move on H on G6?
G6. Okay, let's say we have a pawn here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if the pawn moves here, you can't capture with this pawn. We said pawns only move forward, but then they capture diagonally. So if this
Okay.
pawn is here, it can only capture a piece that is on H6 or F6. So if a pawn moves to G6, you can't capture.
Okay.
Any other question?
Another question is why doesn't passant exist? Like why?
So in percent, I'd say in percent exists to stop pawns from escaping. Let's say in percent exist to stop pawns from escaping capture unfairly. So you see, like here we have a pawn on G5 and a pawn on H7. So when you move this pawn to H5, you're trying to escape the capture that will happen if you play the pawn to H6. So in percent, it helps to it stops pawns from escaping the capture unfairly. So when you perform a
Oh,
charge move, we both know that we both know pawns move one square at a time and forward. So if the pawn you perform a charge move, you're escaping that capture, and in chess you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to perform the n%, because speaking, your opponent is escaping the capture. So you're just allowed to do that. But only it happens if white pawns are on the 5th rank and black pawns are on the 7th rank. And so black performs a charge move. A charge move, I hope you remember I said, is where a pawn, it's in its initial starting position and then it jumps one square and moves forward. Let's say here we have a pawn on H7, so the pawn comes to H5. So that's a charge move. I hope you remember that. So in this, where we have pawn here and then pawn comes here, this pawn can just capture here. So white can only perform the n% or do n% if they have pawns on this 5th rank. They have pawns on 5th rank, and black has pawns on the 7th rank, and then they perform a charge move. For black, they can do n% if they are on the 4th rank. If they are on the 4th rank, and then white tries to perform a charge move. You understand that? But now,
yeah.
if this pawn is here, this pawn is on H6, and then white is on G5, you cannot perform a charge move if it's like this. This is just a normal capture. This is a normal capture. So the n% only comes if they decided to move here up to H5. You understand?
Okay, I understand.